So first item on the agenda, meeting minutes from our prior meeting, July 26, 2023. Does anyone on the commission have any comments, questions, thoughts? All right, I'll make a motion to approve. Second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. All right, next consent agenda. So we have a couple of properties on the consent. So 209 Pembroke House, which is a renovation, 2 trees removed, dirt to remain on site, and 218 Lennar Avenue, a garage project, 1 tree removed, dirt to be taken off site. Any comments, anything to call out?
Yeah, the only difference now on consent is that Kristen and I are going to the sites. So one thing that would help us immensely if we can do it is get a full-blown plan, just one that we can share to look at, because sometimes our laptops and stuff on site don't really work as well. Yeah, and so we basically put our heads together, and these 2 sites, we had street access, and everything was in order. I mean, we couldn't see any issues on any level.
Sounds good. Any other comments? Public comment? No public comment. I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda. Do you have a second? All in favor? Aye. All right, moving on to new grading permits. So do we have anyone from 12 Ferriston Road with us this evening?
Yes.
Welcome back.
Good evening. Welcome. Nice to see you guys again.
You as well. All right, so we have some updated plans to take a look at, correct?
Correct.
All right, walk us through, please.
So I am here today. This is really just for a grading plan. There'll be plus or minus 30 cubic yards removed after the underground storage bed is put in. Our company was hired because the owner was having trouble with water running off into his driveway, down his driveway, and then around the back, and then flooding part of his house. So he contracted us to come out and take a look and see what we can do. This is the solution that they came up with. So really, I'm just here to present you with that. Answer any questions that you have, and then go from there.
So in regards to the limit of disturbance, are there any trees that are near the stormwater system that would be impacted, in your opinion?
No, the only one that I saw when I took a look at it would be the one in the front yard right here. We are doing minimal amounts of soil removal, probably 1 inch to 2, to be able to get a swale to run around. After talking with the engineer this morning, I suggested to him that we look at doing something a little bit different along the front. There is a blow up right here.
Excuse me, can you turn the plan around because it's upside down?
Thank you, Lou. Perfect.
All right.
Thank you.
After talking with the engineer this morning, I came up with another solution to minimize some of the grading. If anything, it would just be a little bit fill a diversion dam. There is some spot elevations here of what we plan on doing, or what we had planned on doing, and that was try to minimize the impact of the root system underneath this. This is a 23-inch Norway maple.
I got to interrupt you. It's a 44-inch maple. I went and measured it with a Biltmore stick, and its root systems go under the driveway, completely under the road.
The Norway maple here in the corner.
In the corner, it's probably lost its leader over time because it's like a 5-trunk tree, but it's
it's a single trunk tree. But
no, it
isn't.
But
it branches out.
No, it's multi-trunk.
Yeah,
yes.
Correct.
And its DBH at breast height is 44. So that's a significant tree. The point is, you guys need to do as much as you can to mitigate any root issues, because I couldn't tell from the swale description what you were going to do. So that's what you're trying to talk to us about here.
Correct. My understanding is it was just going to be minimal amounts of sod and soil removal to get the water to drain. They're going to be cutting the curb, and there's going to be a curb break there, so the water will be able to run through there and then run around the front of the house instead of impacting all the way down the driveway. I'll have to go back out and check to see if it was actually 44 inches. I'm understanding it was less than 2 feet wide. Unless you have. Not all the time, no. But I had questioned the same thing because of where the roots were and so on and so forth. That's why we came up with another solution, and that was to do a little bit of a diversion berm on top. So that would be adding soil instead of taking it out and then sliding any type of grading closer to the right-of-way, away from the trunk of the tree.
Like, if you are going to have to cut any roots, you know, there's ways that they can use like certain instruments that blow air and.
Correct,
you know,
correct.
Because this, actually, Chris and I were both amazed at how nice this tree is.
Yeah,
It's
for a Norway maple,
Yeah.
yes. Mostly that size, they have a tendency to die out, the tops die out, the
perfect.
crotches crack, yeah. Unless you would like us to remove it because it is an invasive species.
I don't think so.
I don't write your ordinances, but,
I am looking at street view, and that is definitely bigger than a 23-inch EVH. So if this technically does classify as a heritage tree, we want to do everything we can to save this guy. So yeah, your alternative plan, certainly let's, follow that and ensure that, technically, tree protection fencing needs to be at the drip line, which,
Correct.
looking at the canopy of this tree, that would,
it's not.
you would need to have tree protection fencing basically in the entire yard, right?
Okay.
So you're going to have to, understanding this project, you're going to have to get closer than the drip line. Just ensure that that tree protection fencing is pushed out as much as you can from the trunk. And per Matt's comment, irrigation might be required if you do hit some roots, and you might have to do some hand digging around there. So just be delicate, because I'm sure the homeowners don't want to see that tree impacted either. So
So would you like to see additional noting on that, notes on that, on how to take
I
care
would
of
like
that?
to see, yeah, I think we'll be okay plan-wise for this evening, but
Okay.
if you could have the plans updated to reflect that, and I would push back, the drip line and the canopy of that tree that is on the plans, and push back the tree protection fencing as much as possible.
Okay.
And get those plans, back to the township.
Will I have to be coming back?
I don't think so. We'll talk about it here in a second, but,
Okay.
we just want to make sure that that tree survives.
Okay.
My-
Thank you. I think the question I have might actually just be, how does one protect the fence appropriately and still do the work that needs to be done on the driveway, for example?
So,
Right?
can you outline again, is the driveway being repaved?
Something's going
I
underneath
see,
it.
I see an indication of a concrete wall. Can you just talk through the specifics of what's going on around the front of the drive there?
At the front of the driveway, the apron will be revised, and my understanding too, there'll be a small little asphalt berm just to minimize some of the water and force it through the curb cut. That way it'll run around the tree and then around the side of the house instead of down the driveway.
Okay. So on the plans, it says concrete wall, but I feel like that is probably just indication of the current curbing of the
Correct.
driveway? Okay.
Oh, okay.
So instead
Originally,
of
there
going-
was a Belgian block edging around that tree,
Sure.
but they had that removed.
I got you. So instead of the water going down the driveway, you want to divert it?
Correct,
to the
around
left
the
of-
building, around the building to the infiltration bed.
Gotcha, okay.
Thank you.
So if I'm looking at the driveway from the street head-on, you want the water to go to the left
Correct.
of the tree?
And then any water that makes its way down the driveway, there's yard drains at the base of the parking area right outside of the garage, which would then take it up and then move it to the infiltration trench or the infiltration basin underground.
Okay. And how much dirt are you planning to remove from,
Roughly 30 cubic yards, like a triaxle.
how far down are we thinking, like 6 inches, a foot?
For the bed itself?
Well, to adjust the swale of the yard, to head it down to the,
In the front of the yard, we're looking at probably 0.12 tenths of a foot, so you're looking at an inch and a half, inch and
Okay.
3/4, so very minimal at the front along the driveway.
Sure, okay. Okay, I don't think I have any other questions, other than, just extreme caution around that tree. I think is in utmost importance. Any other questions, comments? Okay, I'll make a motion to approve with the contingency that you send revised plans back to the township indicating, the DBH of the tree and the increased amount of tree protection required to get it as far out to the drip line as possible. Do I have a second? Second. All in favor? Aye.
Perfect, thank you, guys.
Thank you. Good luck.
Nice seeing you again. Have a nice weekend.
You too, thank you. Do we have anyone for public comment? I apologize. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you. First of all, I was like, oh, darn, I'm going to have to wait till the very end. Marla Neeson, 230 Windermere Avenue. I am a resident, but just as a little bit of background, I am a member of the Radnor Conservancy Board. Also, I do have some experience in forestry because I spent a month last year working for the global organization, the Nature Conservancy, doing baseline forestry measurements for them. So I do have, and worked with Northern Arizona University. So yes, Matt, I also went out and was like, that is not a 23-inch DBH, and there's actually DBH tapes, like a little measuring tape, so that's definitely. The other question I have, and I know that this is a public comment, so instead these will be to questions for the commission, which I know you can't answer. The first question I have is on the commission packet for the agenda tonight. It shows this project already approved. It shows shade tree approval date, August 23, 2023. So I was just curious how in the agenda packet it shows it is already approved. The second
That's
question.
perfect. We're already done.
No, that was 14 Ferriston, and this is 12 Ferriston.
Yeah.
So that's why anyway, so that was, once again, a question for the commission. I have the same concerns about how in the drip line of that maple, how it's even possible to protect it. I have an equal concern about the old grove of oaks that are on the other end that are going to be abutting up to that infiltration tank, because I understand that the permit shows only about 30 cubic yards of grading, but there's also, isn't there excavation in a 50 by 20 foot infiltration tank? I assume that goes down, which I assume would require heavy equipment. And there's a lot of big oaks there, and I imagine a lot of equipment. So aren't they also in need of protection?
What Kristen and I noticed, though, was the oaks are on a ridge. That's next to Eagle Road. So,
Yes.
so it seemed to us that if there's going to be digging, it can't be up there. The trenching would be pretty far away from the oak roots. So that didn't.
Once again, it's just, I imagine, equipment and they're backing in and.
Well, that's always something that people should, putting weight around trees is just a bad practice.
Right.
Totally.
So,
Action isn't root specified.
And people actually put mats down when they're close to a tree for the trucks and stuff. But yeah, the worst case scenario would be to see all the equipment piled around these trees. It happens.
Yes.
But I'm not saying that you're going to do it.
No, and that's why, once again, it's the question is, do any of those other trees close, particularly the oaks closest to that infiltration, do they warrant tree protection fencing to be sure there's a visual barrier? Once again, I don't expect you to answer, just a question for the commission.
Just
So,
for the record, there is tree protection indicated around those trees in the back.
lovely. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
it.
Good, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Thank you. Next address is 168 Lancaster Ave, or 150 to 168 Lancaster Ave. Good evening. So we have the retail and residential unit project in downtown Wayne.
Good evening. I think this is one of those projects where we're here because we're moving dirt. Rob Lambert here on behalf of the applicant. This is a redevelopment site at the corner of East Lancaster and Luella. There's an existing building there. There are two small street trees. I think they're basically saplings at this point that will be removed as part of this project. And I'm going to flip back and forth between the existing and proposed just so you can see. So this is the proposed plan. And if you flip, that's the existing plan. So you really have to look closely to see the difference. Right now, the curb line along Lancaster Avenue in front of this site actually steps back closer to the building. We're actually going to align that, so it's going to be a consistent edge of sidewalk going along Lancaster Avenue. As a result of that, the two trees, there's one small tree right by the walkway and one by the parking area, will be removed. Again, I think they're 2 inches on this plan. We're proposing to do 5 street trees. Let me get to the landscape plan. So there are 5 street trees. We have 1, 2, 3, and then at the corner, having 2 trees there are proposed. Down in Luella, there really wasn't an opportunity. We're trying to still maximize the amount of parking on Luella. And we're also trying to fix the sidewalk along Luella. So there's a building just to the south that comes out very close to Luella with a small sidewalk. We'd be adding a crosswalk along the driveway to be able to get to pavement. Right now, the walkway along the Luella side of the building is low and it goes up to a set of steps. We're actually going to clean that up, and so it will just be a continuous grade going up along the building to be able to get to the corner of Luella and Lancaster. So from a shade tree perspective, it should be pretty straightforward.
And Rob, you've been through, are you through planning for preliminary or?
We've gone through, we had some zoning relief related to this project. Really, it's about parking. We're replacing the commercial and adding apartments upstairs. So we've been to the planning for that. We're actually going back to planning on September 5th for the land development portion.
Okay.
Just for the record, the species of trees that you're planning on putting in, can you speak through those 5?
Yes, so there were 2 ginkgo trees and 3 black gums.
Okay. I know the trees that are there today were planted by us 3 years ago, 4 years ago possibly. So definitely want to make sure that we get trees back in there. And I'm looking at Street View now to see if I can see what the existing species were. I know we did a mix along Lancaster Ave. My only comment on those species are, like the ginkgo could be smaller, well, smell outside of it, but I would love to see some, big shade trees, not necessarily all 5 of them, but maybe 1 or 2.
They're in a tough spot, though. A big shade tree is going to struggle being in a box like that. It's the ginkgos get pretty big, and if they're male, they're not going to stink. So, yeah, I agree with the stink. If it could be horrible, but you're not going to make that mistake on them. And then the sweet gum, what was it? Black gum?
Wildfire black gum.
That's a pretty good tree.
Okay. As far as the existing boxes where the trees are today, are those, it looks like by the planting plan that there's going to be more mulched area than there was before. Is that accurate?
So we're actually proposing a tree grate around those.
Yep.
And so they would have a grate, I believe it's 3 by 5 grate around each one of the ones that are within the sidewalk area. And then the ones at the corner are more in a landscape area.
Right. The ones on the corner is what I'm speaking to. It looks like today that, they're in a small strip, whereas this appears to be a larger area.
That's correct. The one there is in a small strip, and the one at the front isn't. I'm not even sure I would call that a strip. I just it's in a little dirt area.
So that's good in regards to the health of the tree, is having that bigger area.
Yeah, and what the development's allowing us to do is, if you look at the configuration existing, is the angled parking kind of leaves this asphalt area that's really not needed for any parking, and we're trying to capture that back into the landscape.
Okay. And as far as the maintenance of these trees, has the developer committed to, ensuring that these new trees will be, pruned and taken care of?
We haven't gotten to that point, but yes, they will.
Okay. I don't think I have any further comment. Anyone else?
I just want to see the rest of the tape a little bit more.
Which way?
There. Just looking at the rest of the plan list.
There? Is that what you're looking for?
What happens to the older township trees?
Just so you know, the variety of ginkgo that I see on the plan here is going to be fastigiate. So it's a columnar variety of ginkgo.
Is it Princeton?
Yep.
Thanks, John. All right, any other comment? Any public comment? Nobody? I'll make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All right,
Great, thank you.
good luck. All right, next address, 26 Wentworth, land development. Do we have anyone from 26 Wentworth? All right, next, Eastern University, Workman Hall. Good evening.
You're here every month. Every month. One point a month.
So, good evening. Run us through the project. I don't see on the agenda the specifics of dirt and trees, so we'll want to outline that as well. But good evening. Thank you.
Hi, how are you? I'm Mike Rokosny from Site Engineering on behalf of Eastern University. Eastern is proposing an addition to Workman Hall. It is their existing honors college and music college. They're proposing an addition of classrooms, auditorium, just more facilities for their current student body. The addition is going to be in mostly a grassy area behind the existing building with a few existing trees. We actually had our tree survey updated by Steve Schreiner from Schreiner Tree Care to get the size and species correct. And a few existing trees had fallen down from some recent storms. So for the proposed addition, we are removing 11 trees, and that would require us to replant 17. As you can see in our planting schedule on the top, we are proposing 47 trees, with 25 of them being canopy trees.
Awesome. Good work. Thank you for outlining that. In regards to limit of disturbance and moving dirt around, can you just outline, obviously there's going to be dirt moved around for the addition, but where construction equipment will be coming in and out, and where you expect equipment to be during the duration of the project?
Yeah, I don't have our ENS plan with me tonight, but the construction will be coming off of Eagle Road and using existing driveways and parking lots to come down to the site. There'll be a proposed construction entrance where this proposed stormwater bed is, and then the building footprint and the area right behind will be a staging area.
Got it, okay. And then as far as tree protection fencing is concerned, I'm looking for the page that has that outlined.
There's an erosion sediment control plan in the overall land development that has the tree protection fencing.
Yeah, I'm looking for that right now. While we're digging that up, could you, if by memory, could you point out, what the fencing plan is?
Yeah, so the thick black line shown on this plan is our proposed limit of disturbance, and we have tree protection fence around all the existing trees within 20 feet of that thick black line.
I'm not seeing the ENS plan in the packet.
I could send you a copy after.
Yeah, I'm sure we could, if the township has it, we can get it. And if you could just run us through, I know you spoke to the count of the trees, but if you could just run us through the species, and how they were selected, that would be helpful.
Dirk and Etzem was the landscape architect, so they are proposing 7 downy serviceberries, 7 Washington hawthorn trees, 4 London plant trees, 14 shingle oak trees, and 15 green giants.
Okay, so outside of the required 17, you're planting 40, what was it?
7.
47. 15 of those being green giants,
Mm-hmm.
which are technically trees, but just calling that out. But even with the subtraction of those, the counts are still good, and we have a good amount of large canopy trees in the mix. John or Matt, do you guys have any comments around the species selected? They seem to be good to me.
London plant tree's tough, right? And the hawthorn? Yeah.
Any other questions or comments from the commission? And Leah, we have the ENS plan, I'm assuming, on file at the township. Just didn't end up in the packet, it seems.
Everything's turned into engineering. I'd have to double check, but I'm sure it is.
Okay. So if we could just, as an action item, get
I'll
that
qu-
into the
Yeah, I'll
packet
ask
and
Trish to add that.
shoot it around, just so we can do a quick check of it. But I don't foresee that being an issue with getting this through tonight. Any public comment? Any other comments? I'll make a motion to approve. Do I have a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good luck. All right. Next project on the agenda is land development, Villanova University. Good evening. So if you could just introduce yourself, relation to the project, and give us an overview, that would be fantastic.
Karen McManuels, I'm Project Manager, Villanova Facilities. Let me do the overall first. So with the overall site plan, what we're proposing to do is build a storage building, roughly 30 by 60. This is County Line Road as a reference here, our main entrance coming in here. So we're looking down the road here to build a storage building tucked down in here. It's a 1-story building. So it is proposed to be, there's existing abandoned tennis courts right here, so we're tucking it between the tennis courts and the roadway right here at the building, and a driveway in. As part of this project, the old pool house and bocce courts are over in this area here. We're proposing to remove all of that and just grade this out and level that out as part of the projects. So we're not removing any trees, we're just moving dirt.
So I see there's trees right around, where that area is being leveled out.
In the back there, yeah.
How much dirt is being added on top of the root systems of those trees that are in the back?
So
and the sides?
we're not getting that close to the drip line and change in grade in that area.
Mhm.
This, we're grading out here a little bit just so we can get the nice slope on the sidewalk here. And this is just grading out. So the existing grade line comes in here. So right around there, it's not, maybe a couple of inches, not much more than that.
And then
around
on
those
the other
trees.
corner, the grouping of those 3 trees
Back here?
there, and then the
At
subsequent
that?
corner,
So
right?
the grading doesn't really change around those trees at all.
Okay.
And then right here, that's the existing grade that comes across, so that's really not changing grade that much at those trees either.
Understood, okay. And we're obviously familiar with the projects that Villanova does, and you do great work, so I know that you'll want to maintain and save trees that do exist.
Absolutely.
So no trees coming out.
No trees coming down.
And as far as tree protection fencing is concerned, is that indicated on any of the sheets that you have?
Yep. So this is the E&S plan, so there's tree protection around the trees here.
Mhm.
Along there, there's tree protection, and there's some there. And there's silt socks around for the construction.
And as far as access to the construction site of the new storage building, it looks like it's just right off of the existing
Yeah, Matson
road that's
Ford.
there, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, they would be coming in and out of this entrance
Mhm.
to get to the building.
My only concern is the tree protection fencing does seem like it's, beyond or inside of the drip line, I should say.
A little bit, just to get some of the grading in there,
Right.
because that's the fence. We can pull that out and work around that.
Yeah, I would like to see, because it just takes one wrong move of the bobcat or excavator to, chew through some roots accidentally.
Okay,
So at least, in my opinion, I'd love to see that
okay,
protection fencing come out to the drip lines of those.
okay.
Not
Yeah,
just
we
that corner, but the other corners.
Right,
too.
we can pull the grades back there a little bit, so we're not
Okay.
disturbing it as much.
Any other questions or comments? Any public comment? No? All right, I'll make a motion to approve contingent upon revising the tree protection fencing to get it as close to the drip line of the nearby trees as possible.
Okay.
Do I have a second? All in favor? Aye. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you.
Okay. So no one from,
If they don't come, we don't review if someone's not here.
no. So 26 Wentworth, we'll just push off to the next month.
Just so you know, planning table 26 Wentworth, because they didn't really have, they had a lot of pieces missing
Understood.
from, and so,
Revised plans on the way.
yeah.
Got it.
Didn't they, I mean, this was already approved by
No,
another person.
it's another,
I know the guy that owns it, but isn't it same thing?
not necessarily, they don't have they haven't figured out their water, they want to hold all the water on the property, and they haven't figured out how. Because the neighbors on the street behind them get water from there, so. Of course, this is your old stomping grounds, James.
It is?
I think so.
We will discuss in detail next meeting.
Too much information, right?
Take a bigger role.
All right. Old business. So we have a few things to touch on this evening. So the fall planting update. So Frank got our order in for 150, and then PHS came back and said they're having some resourcing issues doing a big order, so they cut us down to 100, contingent upon once ordering closes September 1st or the 2nd, whatever it is, they will let us know if we can get 150 or 100. So with that being said, there's no formal plan yet to approve or get in front of the BOC. We kind of have to wait until we hear from PHS. But piggybacking off of that, which is once we have the total count, then the plan is, just like we've done previously, is we'll get the help of tree service companies. We've already gotten the nods from a few of them to help out. We'll probably do between 15 and 20 trees per company that wants to help. So, we'll be putting together, those allocations once we have the final count. If we get 150 trees, what I would propose we do like we did last fall, which is hire tree authority to help us plant 50 or a subset of that. And then the rest can be, planted by volunteers, and we'll allocate some for parks as well. So that's the preliminary plan. And then as far as resident registrations, so we had discussed opening up registration after Labor Day. That is still the plan. We should have the final tally at that point. So, we'll have an idea of when we need to close registration. And typically what we've been doing is keeping registration open and getting another at least 20 to 30 applications or registrants, so that if somebody cancels or, what have you, we have that overflow. And then for those that we don't have trees for, we'll put them on the waiting list for the spring. Coalescing with this is we did get a table at the Radnor Fall Fest. Township has 4 tables. We're getting one of them. Ginny's been working on this. I do just need to verify some details to ensure everything's ready to go. But the plan would be for us to use that as a forum for signing up for getting a tree, which would be awesome. And then the other plan would be for us to have some sort of poster or something speaking to our master flyer, which outlines, our plantings, the ordinance, what our mission is, all of that good stuff, and general, awareness of, the Shade Tree Commission and what our mission and vision is. So that's obviously within the next 2.5 weeks here or so. So there's a fair amount of things to happen between now and then. So as far as next steps that I'll take, which is I will verify the details of our table. Frank and I spoke briefly about this, getting another sign printed that is evergreen. The sign we've been using was the one from like 2 seasons ago, or 2 years ago, I should say. And, that's a big banner. We need a smaller banner. So we're going to get a banner printed. We'll get a poster printed for both, our master flyer information, and then maybe not poster size, but 11 by 17 size for the tree sign up, which will have a QR code on it, which will take you right to the form. So you can sign up right there, and we can talk trees and talk species that we're offering, and try and get as many people to sign up that day as we can. And we can work through this offline, but we can start thinking about, the Fall Fest is it's a lengthy time period, so we can talk through rotations and who's available to go. I don't expect all of us to be there the entire time, but we'll do shifts. Any thoughts on the planting itself coming up? Make sense? Ricky and John, I may be tapping you guys if you're willing to help out again like we did last fall with some planting. Awesome, thank you. Ricky, you guys good to plant 10, 15 around there? Nothing crazy? Okay.
Well, we'll be 40 between Steve, let the two go together.
Sure, okay. Combined 40, okay. Thank you. We'll keep you posted on the allocations. So I know, Shriner's been chomping at the bit to help us. I know the executive offered to help plant again, and a raider as well, so I think we got plenty of people to help out. So stay tuned. We'll have the official plan for next meeting to approve as a commission, and then I'll take it to the board right after that, whatever the next meeting is, to get it approved.
May I ask a
So-
question? I have a question for volunteers, let's say kids, whatever. Do we in any way validate, like for community service hours, people need to document it. Have we ever done that? Just to get volunteers, like
So
younger people, kids?
We've had a slew of Cabrini students come, and I know Frank has validated
Yeah.
the hours,
Okay.
with the host who's, providing us with the students. So, yeah, we do
So
it
we've
on
done
a
it, okay.
as needed, as asked basis kind of thing. What do you got, Ricky? Did you have a question, Ricky? Yeah, sorry.
So, yeah, I was asking, I wanted to find out about with the planting, if we already determined areas. I know usually John and Steve kind of work together to pick out areas. We want to do some planting, so.
For the parks? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So the idea would be, so this dovetails nicely into the maintenance pilot, which is we're going to be touching some areas and cleaning them up, and I'd love to see some trees planted in those freshly cleaned up areas. So that would include Warren, Philippone, Beauconner. That would include the Willows. That would include possibly Radnor Trail. I know it's getting tight in there, but there's some areas where if they're cleaned up, we might have some new room to plant. So that's at least the preliminary plan. I know what we've done in the past is we said when we're doing the fall park planting that the logistics are too crazy to do multiple parks at once, and let's just do one park at a time. So that is still the plan. If I were to guess, I would say Warren Philippone is probably going to be our candidate for this fall to plant trees. I think we got plenty of room there. So Ricky, as an action item, if in passing you want to speak with Steve Ledgerton and just spread the word that, that's at least the thoughts, Warren Philippone to be the park planting spot.
Sure, we'll do.
Do you have any concerns or?
That's part of that 150/100, correct?
Yep, exactly. So we'll slice off, last fall, we planted, I think the total was 35 in parks, right? And then the rest were resident plantings. So that'll be the.
We'll be able to determine on Tuesday how many trees you need for there. Get them considered so we can decide all of it.
Exactly.
That'll be our park plan.
Exactly. Good segue. So we nailed down a date to have all of our identified contractors come out for the on-site review of the projects and for them to provide us with estimates. So this upcoming Tuesday at 7 a.m., John, Ricky, and I are going to go out. We're going to first meet at Warren, Philippone, Beauconner. Give them an overview of, what the project is. It's a great area to have this first meeting, plenty of parking. It's a great view and obvious view of the area that needs to be cleaned up. So the companies that were contacted, so 4 total tree companies, 4 total landscape companies. I got confirmations from more than 50% of them so far. So Schreiner, Executive, Horgan, and a Rater on the tree care side of things. On the landscaping side of things, Mayfield, All Seasons, Trocini, and Franco Sullivan. So the idea is we'll meet at Warren Philippone first. We'll go over the project. If we want to, or if it's necessary, to go to the other sites that we identified, we can. I allocated a couple of hours myself. We'll see. I'd imagine everyone will get the idea after that first site visit, and I'd imagine, those companies will probably on their own time go visit the other ones. I did send the PDF of the maps that we reviewed last time of the red circled areas that we want, to have this work done at. So they have all the information that they'll need to go around and verify those locations. And again, this is more of an art, not a science. So we know that possibly, the estimates could go beyond what our allocated budget is, and that's why we prioritized, the areas in the parks. And we'll see what we get. So I think, this will be a good first whack at it. And then, as John just mentioned, While we're there, we'll also think through, you know, how many trees we could fit once these areas are cleaned up, and not just these areas that are cleaned up, but also the surrounding area in the park where we could throw some trees.
Seth, real quick, not to jump off topic here,
Yeah.
but are we going to provide like a cost form for these contractors to fill out, like, you know, with vine, obviously, removal and invasive removal, it varies depending on topography and conditions. I'm thinking at the end of the day, we obtain like a 100 square foot area price for total vine removal and invasive control, just so we have something to base it upon. Or do you want to do it by park?
I went back and forth on this. I almost want to say by park, only because all of these areas vary fairly drastically in topography and location. I don't know that these companies will provide that level of detail. I don't know. I'd love to get your thoughts on that, but just to keep it easy for this first round. But you're in the industry more than I am, so is that a common thing for this type of work?
Yes, we probably should look at also like a day rate as well, like how much can get done in a day, just because I think we're going to see some high numbers just based on the severity of the vine and invasives. So, I mean, it's something we'll talk about at the meeting, and maybe as a group we'll come to a consensus on how everybody's going to bid it, so it's apples to apples.
Right, yeah, there is, you know, if you look at the maps that I had sent around, like the swaths that I circled are pretty huge, but I think what we need to work together as a group is to say, hey, we have these 5 parks. We can kind of allude to not the specific budget number, but we can say, hey, we want to get as much done as we can across these 5 parks. And, you know, here's kind of the range that we're looking at. Because I don't want to have us go in there and present like a blind budget number, right? Because we could get numbers that are like $10,000 or $100,000. So I'd love to give a range to say, hey, we're looking between, you know, $30,000 and $50,000, you know, to do work across these 5 parks. What are you available? What can you provide to us in that range? And then I'm sure each one of these companies is going to come back with, you know, a different style of quoting or estimating, and we'll just have to figure it out from there.
Seth, say if you had 5 companies doing this, and you're like, all right, let's all aim for 10,000 each, and see what they can get done. They are going to be different if they're at different spots.
Yeah, and that's, when we get the estimates back, that might be the way we do it. I will say there's probably going to be efficiency in having one company do it versus many, right? I'd imagine, you know, we'll get a group rate versus an individual park rate.
Well, then it might be just, you know, like people hours, like the labor that was there, and then figure that out, and then.
The day rate, right.
Yeah, and then figure out the acreage that we were covering.
I mean, I can look at the park, and I'll be able to tell you how many days it is.
Sure.
For a 2 to 3, I mean, that's really a 2-man crew.
Right.
So maybe, you know, when we're there, I'll be able to say, hey, this park is, you know, 3 crew days, 2 men, 9 hours a day, subtract lunch, get 8.5, and then drive time. And we could do a day, we can break the proposal up, and maybe after we're done, we'll send out a cost form. You know, total park, crew day rate, and then an hourly rate or something. Then we'll be able to figure it out.
Yeah.
We just need something to compare to the board when we're presenting the summary findings of the cost structure, so.
Exactly.
And at some points, it's going to go over, if you do multiple days, it's going to go over the $7,500, which then it has to go to bid, right?
No.
Or 25,000?
25,000, right.
25,000.
I mean, it's going to be an interesting process to try to navigate that because, as me and you talked about before, Seth, if we're hoping that with these multiple companies you have, that one might win at one park, one might win at another park, but if, say, one beats everybody, then it's going to have to go to bid. Like, it's going to shoot the whole process down.
So why don't we just tell them what the price is? Say, hey, we want somebody to do this for $5,000. Pick a section out and do it.
You know,
If you have 8 companies
my
going there.
personal opinion of doing this for a long time with the consulting is a day rate for something like this. And us understanding that, hey, this is gonna take 4 days, and here's our day rate. So we know there's no, you know, just say they're awarded the project, okay? Executive is awarded the project, and it starts in beginning of December, and we get snow, and in between their snow plowing services, they're there. The time's gonna take a lot longer to get that done compared to doing it early October when you got ideal conditions, you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
There's a lot of variables. That's why it's a day rate, and they're expected to get so much done in that day rate. And I can give them an example of that when we meet. That's just from my
Yeah.
experience, day rates work really well.
And you're given the day rate, or you're just getting day rate from them?
We're getting a day rate from them, that day
Okay,
rate.
gotcha.
Right.
And this has to be done this year, does it?
Yeah, I mean, that's the goal, yes.
Because if we want to get
Ask about its financial.
Right,
next year, again, if it works.
exactly.
And as it's noted on the paper, it's a pilot program. So, I mean, maybe, this part we're meeting at first, we do as a demo and see, and maybe we break it up among 2 different crews, to see, see fashion, so we have an idea going forward, if we have a lot of parks.
Yeah, I mean, we will have at least 2 companies because we'll have a tree company and a landscape company. So we'll at least have that benchmark. But I do agree, not to make a competition out of this, but we should probably, hire 2 tree service companies, 2 landscape companies, have them work in different parks, see how they perform, just, see what the experience is.
And we know who's gonna provide.
Right.
One question with the, and I didn't think about this before. What are the landscape companies? What would their
So-
projects be?
Devining and invasive brush clearing.
So devining trees.
Yep, devining trees.
So that was one of my concerns. If they're devining trees, they're basically working on trees, right? And then the ordinance,
No, they're cutting the vines at the base of the tree.
Right, they're not climbing.
just at the base of the tree?
Yeah, they're not going to climb and
So not taking and not
rip
devining?
vines out. yeah.
There's no refit.
No devining,
Just cutting at base.
so just cutting, no,
Leave it on one spot to see ground
Okay.
level.
And then the,
We gotta leave that area a little high because we don't want layer.
Right.
And when they start to emerge again.
right, and no herbicides to be used, and the idea is to clear out, if any trees are, surrounded by brush or vines or whatever, clear a 5 to 10 foot section around the tree out.
And either group has to do the same thing, like divine or whatever, same.
So the tree companies would be in charge of pruning trees.
But the landscape divining, you were saying it has to go to a certain height or something. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so if they're doing the same area, the tree company is gonna divine as they come down the tree. Or they're gonna divine and cut it at the bottom to get up the tree. You can't get an aerial lift in here, right? So they have to climb it,
In Bow Connor.
and so as the guy goes up to climb, he's gonna cut the vines out. So you gotta split them up, I think, into different
Yeah.
areas.
Well, so, yeah, we'll have to stage, so it's probably going to make sense for the tree companies to go in first, and then the landscape companies, right? Or what are your thoughts?
I'd have to see the site, but, I mean, if a guy has to go up a tree, climb a tree, he has to cut the vines off
Sure.
to get up the tree. As he goes up,
Depending
because
on
his
how bad
knots,
they
his
are.
knots will
Right.
get caught and everything
Right.
else.
I know, so like Bow Connor, I think there's enough room in there to get a crane or, a cherry picker or a bucket truck. And I know Shriner and Executive have those. I don't know
Yeah,
if,
It's really soft there.
it is, yeah. So who knows? I don't know. Well,
So they kind of split things up,
right.
not to have guys going to a job that it's already cut down. I mean, if there's a guy in a tree, as he comes down, he's gonna cut the vines out. So you'll need to send somebody to do the same thing.
Well, they'll cut the vines out so that they can climb the tree, but as far as cutting the vines at the base of the tree, you know, slicing out a section and painting them,
Yeah, I guess. if
he
they're
still
really-
needs,
I don't know what the site's like, but if they're really stuck on the tree, sure, he's not gonna cut
yeah.
those out.
So that was my thought, to get the tree companies in first, get all the big stuff done, and then have landscape companies come back in and polish stuff up, basically.
So with that situation, the concern's gonna be if there's chunks of vines growing on a tree.
Mm-hmm.
And John, I'm sure you've seen this before, but landscape company comes to cut it, and they're not using a saw every day, they're gonna start chipping the tree away.
Well, we'll make sure that we go over that on site. And I know, John, you know, you're tasked with some sort of project oversight to this, and we can talk through, like, you know, what the specifics are. But some of the budget, you know, is earmarked for you to project manage this thing.
Yeah.
Our ultimate goal off the bat is to cut any vines at the base of the tree to start getting them to decline. If the tree requires pruning or removal, depending on what's going on at these parks, because we're actually going to be doing an inspection in September of all the parks. But right now, it should be vines and any hazard limbs, okay? And it should be two different parties. The first party comes in, cuts the vines at the base of the tree. 1 month later, that tree company comes back in and does any touch-up pruning that's required. I don't want guys pulling limbs off because, you know, especially on poplars and hickories, the limbs are just gonna break, you know, and that is a very tedious, time-consuming job. Our job is to eradicate vine growth by killing it and invasive plant material down in the understory. I don't wanna be pulling off and, you know, it's,
My thought was to have tree companies in first, landscaping companies second, but it sounds like do the opposite makes more sense. Okay.
I see your point too, it's just the way it works with the vines, debris, then the guys will come in and take any dead one out.
Right.
I just don't want the tree guys going in and pulling vines off. Just want them dead, they come and do their work. It's a park, it's natural. There's not a landscape tree in the front of the house.
Right. And
The tree guys won't be pulling vines off the tree, though.
I'm saying we don't want that to happen.
Right, I don't think they would do that. I think we have to be careful with landscapers, if they're cutting vines on trees, they're gonna start slicing the tree. Maybe it doesn't do much harm
Oh.
to the
A lot
tree.
of this is false grade, of course, we're very vine, all that stuff that's not like stuff in the trunk of the tree.
Well, that's why after day one, John's going to drive around and inspect their work.
We're gonna talk about, I mean, loppers need to be used with
Mhm.
clothes instead of just yanking a chainsaw out and cutting through the trunk. We'll discuss all those parameters on that.
Right, right. Yeah, we'll make sure, I mean, one of the reasons for choosing who we did choose to get estimates is, you know, there's some level of trust and work in what we've had with experience with them. So I'd imagine these guys will do a good job. And obviously, there's the promise of the following years that there's going to be more of this work, providing that this program is a success. So I think everybody's in it for the right cause. And as far as removals go, the idea is to limit removals as a scope of this project. Ricky, one question I have for you, which is, I know we talked about, there's like a big dead tree right at the front of O'Connor Park in that middle section.
Yeah, we had talked to John, and he said that's a historical tree, so he wanted to leave it. No, we actually took that tree down.
Oh, did you? All
Yeah,
right,
we did.
awesome.
That's
Good,
one of
good,
the
good.
ones in the bottom, trees removed by the township, that's,
Look at that.
that was yours. We
Thank
We're
you.
on it.
we attached your name to it, and it was a rush item.
Thank you. Yeah, so if there's like smaller deadwood trees, you know, that's like 6-inch DBH that are near some of these areas, I think those are fine to have the tree companies take out, right? But we're not looking for big tree removals, that's outside of the scope of this. It's pruning of dead wood, and, really just clean up around trees. All right, any other questions, comments on the maintenance pilot? Moving forward, all right, good deal. Any other old business to discuss? All right, new business. Trail tree inventory.
So recently, my firm performed a level 1 risk assessment of all trees along the 2.2-mile multi-purpose trail. There was a total of 88 trees requiring some sort of care. From those 88, 51, I believe, are removals, and they are predominantly ash, the remaining ash on the, I think Ian's going to put up on the screen, right? Yep.
Thank you.
Ian's going to put it up. There it is.
Perfect.
Yep. You can see here we have a tree tag. All these trees were tagged, number of trees within each tag, the species, DBH, and then just, what we're going to do. So some of these trees, like you see tree number 1, they're all ash. We're just going to cut the drag out of the tree so there's no failure and leave all the logs for wildlife value. So they're going to become wildlife snags. I don't believe we should be paying guys to remove logs out of the woods.
Agree.
Those trees will degrade and be homes for a lot of birds and insects. Condition and the actual priority rating is all the way to the right there. So it tells you how long we have to manage these trees because of the known risk.
Great.
Can we keep the Japanese knotweed?
Japanese knotweed is getting approved back.
It's one of your personal favorites, James.
Yeah, thank you.
And a majority of these are closest to the trail to help prevent, injury from falling. Right, exactly.
These trees are going to fail either onto infrastructure, person, or adjacent neighboring properties.
Right, but we're not going deep into the woods to cut down trees just to cut down trees, right? Good. Well, thank you for,
That'll be going out in September, correct?
Yeah, I have to go, you're the first step, seeing this list, and then after the commission okays it, then we have to go to BOC and ask their permission to go to bid for this project, for the removals, for the pruning, everything that's on there. And also, just as a side note to your question, Seth, the trail has a right-of-way, just like it is on the streets.
Sure.
So we don't go outside that right-of-way.
understood.
So we stay within that. There was actually a tree that had to be removed that fell onto the trail. We just cut it back and made it safe, and that log or totem pole was left there for the resident to fend for the rest. So once the trail is safe, that's our responsibility.
Sure. And I did do a site visit when I was visiting for the maintenance pilot, and I did see the markings on the trees, and they were definitely dead, the ones that were marked. So everything looks good on my end. Does anyone else have any questions regarding the trail list? We can just do a formal head nod vote, just for the record, if that works. So I'll make a motion to approve the Radnor Trail maintenance and removal list to move forward. Do I have a second? All in favor? Aye. There you go.
Thank you. Just so you know, too, John will be starting the park inspections in September, probably by the mid to end.
Mhm.
So last time we did a bid, I think we had parks and the trail on there. So this time, I want to act on this first, and then
Yeah.
once we get all the information from the condition of the trees in the parks, then we'll probably act on that. But, this commission will see that before it goes to the BOC.
That sounds like a plan. And as far as the park removal work, do we feel like that will happen this year, or is that a next year thing? Next year? Okay. So trail this year, parks next year. Got it. All right. So moving on, Kristen's show of the Shade Tree Commission checklist and the next door discussion.
Okay, thank you. So on the website, on our webpage, there is a checklist. And at first, I was just thinking like, oh, this is kind of really difficult to use and understand, maybe from a resident standpoint. So I tried to update it. And then, maybe there's questions about what's in it. And then I'm wondering, who is it intended for? Does anyone know who that checklist was for? Is it for a homeowner or is it for a contractor? For the contractor?
Yes.
Okay, so maybe we just make that clear on it because it was not clear to me who that was for, that checklist.
Could you tell me what checklist? Are you talking about the hazard tree checklist?
No, the
or-
Shade Tree Commission checklist.
Okay, got it.
I think that's for the Shade Tree Commission. I think.
Who was it for?
That's for developers as well.
Okay,
Yeah, I think it is a multi-purpose.
okay.
And I think at the, go to
Checklist.
the bottom of that,
Mhm.
it's from a different consultant, so I,
That's the bottom page, right? It has some
yeah,
of
the Tree Tech
random.
Consulting. This was brought up like 3 or 4 years ago because it's different information than
So
the
maybe-
township.
okay.
It should be.
And-
Maybe we just update this just to be clear of who it's for and then what's in
Yeah,
it?
I think this document originally came from the prior shade tree regime.
Okay.
So I think we have purview to update this, we'll review it,
Okay.
run it by you guys, make sure everything looks good, and then we can replace it.
Yeah, I think after I had received it, Ms. Leah had passed it on to me, and I had took it to Steve Nursini to have him take a look.
Thank you.
And he sent the email to the commission, and basically that he was in favor of whatever changes you might feel like
Okay.
need to be done. He'll review it and see what, he can do to improve it.
Okay, cool.
Great.
Thank you. Great.
So as far as next steps for that, I know you had sent around your version of it. If we,
Which was literally just converting the content
Sure.
to a different format, but I don't have any say on the content, but.
well, I mean, we do have some input. What I would recommend is, we have a few things in regards to recommended tree lists. We have the detail of the tree protection fencing. So I think those two things could replace, what's in the current one with the tree tech consulting situation.
If I could make a recommendation, maybe after we get through the fall planting and all that stuff, this will be a great winter project where we can meet and
Agreed.
maybe even do a little executive session where we start drafting and putting notes together, then compiling a final list. So we can sit here one day and get that together and then get it approved.
I like that. And I do see, we have that separate document on our page, the tree protection fence detail. So we could possibly combine that with this or keep it separate, but I think an audit
Yeah.
is due, for sure.
And then can we add to the audit, the idea of, this is really what I wanted to bring up, is instead of using so many just PDFs, either having an interactive PDF or just some kind of online form so that people don't have to print things out and scan. Exactly, or even just a form, right? You just, like a survey, you just shoot it, something like that. So we can tackle that later, but that's really what I wanted
All of those forms should be.
to bring up, yeah.
The,
Yeah.
the clearing permit application is one that could
Yeah.
use that, for
Okay.
sure.
Okay, those were just a couple things I wanted to just put forward, that's it. And then, okay. Can everybody see just that really quick screenshot of the next door Radnor Township page?
Ian, if you're still back there,
you may not
item
be.
7C,
It's not.
if you could bring up that image that's linked.
Oh, hello.
Thank you.
The reason we were talking about that app is anybody familiar with Nextdoor? I've used it. It's like a community app, right? Because we were talking about being able to send a communication to a specific neighborhood, right? And that's how it is organized, is by neighborhood. So if we're going to be doing something in a certain park or neighborhood, it would be nice. And I noticed that there was a township page, but I don't know who owns it or who manages it and who's allowed to post on behalf of the township. So I was curious.
So we can reach out to Molly or Tammy. I'll bet either one of those probably know who has access, and I can send you their
Okay.
contact information.
Oh, there you go.
So yeah, Molly is our public information officer, and then Tammy Cohen.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, I don't know that anybody's really monitoring it. And I don't know that the page on the right is part of the program on the left in orange, because I just merged these images myself. So
I gotcha.
it probably should be part of the orange.
Mhm.
I'm not sure it is, but we can follow up. Because I think it would be nice to be able to, just engage using this as well. I
And the-
tried to recruit a new Shade Tree Commission member myself. Nobody even answered.
No worries.
That's okay.
One of the items that we did speak to that I think this would be perfect for is, we've always discussed when we're doing these fall park plantings or these seasonal park plantings, is getting the local community in the surrounding area of that park involved. So this could be one way that we spread the word. I know Frank in the past has done some, he's left flyers behind, he's done some door knocking, trying to spread the word. But I feel like this could be one way to do that. But I would say, we can run this by Molly, get her thoughts on this too, because she might already have a plan to do targeted communications.
Okay, thank you.
But she's always our ally in all of this.
Okay, thank you.
But great idea. Okay. So we already went through the tree maintenance pilot plan update. Any other new business we want to cover? All good. Hazardous trees. Any trees to note, John or Ricky? Everything
sir.
is all
Yeah,
standard?
everything checked out.
Doing a quick once through the photos of the hazard trees. They all look really dead. All right. Trees removed by Radnor Township. Do you want to give us a quick overview?
Yeah, everything checked out again. It was trees that we received calls on. I got notification from a resident. The one at 20 Aldwin, actually, that was, sometime things slipped through the cracks, and this one was one that slipped through the cracks. And we just had to double back with John and make sure, and it was something we're supposed to have taken care of, and sometime that happened. So that's why you're just seeing this now. We're actually doing work on that street with another tree, and a resident reached out, and we found the emails, and sometime that happens. But it was taken care of. And the Radnor Trail, we had storm damage that I spoke of earlier, and we had to have our emergency tree contractor up there. And while he was there, me and John went out and did a quick overview of the length of the trail, just to see if there was any other trees that had the potential to come down after, in addition to the tree that was already being taken care of. And there were 2 locust trees that were on the list to be removed. And while we were there, John was like, we need to get those down because they could fail at any moment. So that's why they're mentioned on there, but they were also on that list to be removed. So we basically had them cut down and left like a totem pole so they couldn't reach the trail, so it would be made safe.
Great. Thanks for that update. Hey, for the record, I brought it up. Thank you. That was an eyesore, so happy to see that thing out of the park, and we'll plant some new trees in its place. No public participation that I can see. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, guys.